All right, welcome back to another episode of Strangers Worth Meeting. If you're joining us on this one, I am in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is one of my favorite towns. We have been here twice now on the road and just had to come back. We actually spent the last month in Arizona, which was excellent, but unfortunately for the podcast, I tried to reach out to like 5 or 6 different people while I was there, and no one wanted to jump on the show because sometimes you just get lucky and find awesome people, and sometimes people have other plans. It was the holidays, so I think that was a big part of it too. But today on this episode, I'm super excited because I am here with Professor Jacob Benitez and his lovely wife, Professora Angela Benitez, who just became a black belt this weekend. So big congratulations. And the two of these guys own a Jiu-Jitsu, what would you call it, a studio, or what is
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
Academy, okay, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy here in Las Cruces, the name of which is officially, if people want to look it up, is it Gracie Barra Jiu-Jitsu Las Cruces?
Gracie Barra Las Cruces.
Baja.
Yeah.
I always get that wrong.
The double R is pronounced like an H in Portuguese.
And that's Portuguese because Brazil obviously is sort of the odd man out on Portuguese. Okay, cool. So I'm way out of sorts because I just spent 2 hours doing my best attempt at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the first time ever, and it's something I have seen, done, and watched a ton of YouTube videos about. It's always fascinated me. Obviously, if you like MMA or watch UFC, you see these moves happening, and so I was a big fan of this. And found you on Instagram and got real excited that I might be able to come and try it. And so we've been doing that for like 2 hours. You were super nice. Let me join classes.
Man,
I was
you
not
did
qualified.
awesome. You did great.
Well, I tried. You know what I mean? I think that's, if there's one message we can probably leave with people with, it's just try.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not gonna get good at anything unless you try it first. So yeah, that's good.
So we have so much with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I want to know about. So I came with a lot of questions for you.
On.
I think it's fascinating in its history. And also sort of the philosophy of what this is. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about the background of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for someone who doesn't know anything about what we're talking about? What are we talking about? What is this?
Well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is comes from Brazil. You know, Jiu-Jitsu originally comes from Japan. It's a art that the samurai used to use, you know, throughout the years. When the samurai were outlawed, the practice of Jiu-Jitsu was also outlawed in Japan, and it was kind of forgotten about for many years until Judo was introduced, and it was Jiu-Jitsu was kind of reintroduced in the form of Judo. That started becoming very popular, you know, as a martial art, an exercise. Once they started trying to take it out of Japan, they started traveling around to America. They started traveling to different countries. Brazil was one of the places that they went, and they introduced it there to the Gracie family. The Gracies were the ones who really took the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu in the form that they got it and kind of developed it into their own system, and
made it famous too,
yeah,
right?
They really popularized it, made it their own. It's a certain way of teaching, a certain way of putting together the techniques and everything. That's what makes it a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and not Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Kind of approach it a little bit different way. But once the Gracie family got a hold of it, they started really making it popular, started spreading it around. They were able to bring it to America. And I think what really made it popular here in America was the introduction of the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Jiu-Jitsu was here for a few years in America before the UFC started, but that's what really got it introduced to the mass public.
And now it's grown, it's huge.
Yeah,
you can find
huge.
Gracie Academies and almost anywhere, and there's, I think, other different styles too that I've come across. So, what was your start then getting into Jiu-Jitsu? When did you start?
I started training, it was probably around 1997. I saw the first UFCs, the early UFCs, and I saw Royce Gracie, choking and submitting a lot of really big guys, you know.
That was kind of his thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. I used to box. I used to, be into Bruce Lee, into martial arts and everything all my life growing up. But I never knew what jiu-jitsu was. I never knew what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was until I saw that. And so I was blown away by it. I saw what he was doing, and I didn't really understand it. I wanted to know a little bit more. I always was under the impression, you can't overpower somebody, you can't outbox them, you're going to kind of be in a little bit of a bad situation. But when I saw that, you could actually beat somebody bigger and stronger than you with the jiu-jitsu that he was using. I really wanted to find out more about it. So, I just tried to find as much on the Gracie family, as much on jiu-jitsu as I possibly could. Back then, there was no YouTube. There was no Barnes and Noble or anything like that to get books from or anything. So it was really hard to find anything on jiu-jitsu. Nobody in Las Cruces even knew what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was.
And that's where you were at the time?
Yes.
Were you Las Cruces born and raised?
I'm from Alamogordo, but I've been here for longer than I actually lived there.
Gotcha,
so,
okay.
Yeah, this is pretty much my home, I consider it. Once I, really started trying to find some information on it, I got a hold of a friend, and we would watch the UFC and then kind of see what Royce Gracie was doing, and then we'd go practice the moves on each other and stuff. We actually had the police called on us at the park because they thought we were in the park fighting with each other as the cops came and said, hey, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Which is funny because it's like when you really look at what's happening when two people are rolling, it's gentle. Like, it's really not all that violent because you're really only at about like maybe 70-80% of what you could like really do if you're trying to hurt somebody.
I laugh. It's sometimes you see the beginners classes have a little bit more of that fire in them than the advanced classes because they learn a little bit more technique and they can kind of apply it a little bit more. In the beginners classes, it's a little bit more like, well, I'm going to try to be stronger than you and that's how I'm going to win, So sometimes it gets a little bit rougher of a roll there.
Yeah. So this is both a martial art and a sport and a self-defense system that sort of helps to, equate the difference between people of two very different sizes and skill sets. And when I first came in and was getting ready to take class here, which we're going to get into because it was an absolutely wild experience. But I see, maybe, I don't know, how old were the kids that were in there right before I was? Maybe 10, the less?
There are 6 to 11 years old.
6 to 11, okay. And those kids could probably kick my ass. Like, I'm fairly certain of it because they'd see my arm and they'd be like, well, if I just twist it that way, like, he's done. And I think that's something that's so fantastic. I actually came across this because I was so curious, but obviously there's so many programs within the Gracie training that have to do specifically with women and their safety, and also starting kids from a young age so that they can really get a good handle on this. So, I consider myself like I'm not an out of shape guy. I keep up. I'm pretty good. But man, get on that mat with someone like you who knows sort of the physics of this, and I'm done for. I'm toast.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different. I tell people, like you say, I can do jiu-jitsu for a long time. I could do it, hard and not get tired right away. But I'm not a runner. Say I would try to go and run a marathon, I would never finish. I wouldn't last. So it's just what your body's a little bit more used to. You kind of develop the conditioning for that particular exercise, that particular sport, or what have you. Jiu-jitsu, I think first and foremost was developed for self-defense. But I think it's now become a very popular sport. So the sport aspect, sometimes you go to a tournament, you have to go multiple matches, so that conditioning really has to be there if you're gonna really do well in competition.
And I feel like the style kind of touts itself as it can take on any other style of fighting someone else might do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many kicks you throw at me because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu it's about having control over the limbs and the striking ability of your opponent, sort of, and making sure. And I also think it's so fascinating that part of it is like being comfortable on your back too, so comfortable and in control. So for someone who's new to this, my first experience doing this, I've seen a ton of videos. It all makes sense in my head. I watch you show the move in slow-mo, real slow, show it 3 or 4 times, and then I get on the mat to try it out with my partner, and I'm like, what was I supposed to do?
What was I doing?
Because where does this arm go? And I think this might not be a struggle for everyone, but for me, I have like no perception of my own body.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no idea what's happening at any given time. I can kind of do the motions of whatever like training or physical activity I'm doing, but I think in a real fight scenario, it's really about having kind of a muscle memory for this. It's like you don't have time to think about I'm gonna grab there and then I'm gonna do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You feel
it has
that.
to be a reaction. I say that's one of the things you're not only trying to control your own body, you have to get very good controlling your own body, your balance, your mobility, but you're also trying to control somebody else who's very resistant at the same time, you know. And I think you know, like you said, if you know exactly what you're trying to do, I think it makes it a little bit easier. I always try to tell people, if you understand the concept of things, like conceptual jiu-jitsu is, I think, very important to grasp, because then it'll help you learn the techniques that you're trying to learn, the step-by-step and all that. If I understand what I'm trying to do, then it's going to be easier to put the actual technique to it, you know. So, like you said, I'm trying to control your limbs, you know. As long as I know I'm trying to control your limbs, it's a little bit easier to go through that technique and learn the actual technique step by step.
And it's sort of like you can be in a dominant position whether you're on top or on bottom. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The key thing is like there's places where you're in control and places where you're not in control. And it's sort of like about this patience of getting to that place where you become in control. I was blown away. That was so cool.
That's one of the things that separates the jiu-jitsu from other arts, is that you know, I always tell people, you don't necessarily want to be on the ground. That's not necessarily the on your back the best place to be. But if we have to be there, what are we going to do? We have to be able to fight out of that position, escape from that position, or even finish a fight from that position. So if we do end up there, we have lots of things that we can do. But, you know, also we can fight from the top, fight from our feet also.
So the scandalous question I have is, I'm curious if learning these things has ever helped you in a real world scenario personally, or either of you.
Yeah, as far as physically, I've had to, you know, use jiu-jitsu to control somebody, control a violent person. There's been a couple situations where somebody's tried to hurt me, or maybe been, you know, where I've had to break up another fight, so I've had to control them from hurting each other, really. But the good thing with jiu-jitsu is it allows you to be able to control somebody without really hurting them if you choose not to, you know. So it allows you to be able to control them and not have to beat them up, you know. So even if you're trying to hurt me, you're trying to attack me, maybe you've had a couple too many drinks or something, you know, and I just need to kind of get a hold of you and control you. I can do that without, you know, hurting you. So I have had to do that a couple of times where I've just had to, you know, put somebody down and make sure that they're not going to hurt me or somebody else around them. Yeah.
Professor Angela?
I have not had to use this in a real life scenario, and I'm very thankful and grateful, but I feel like jiu-jitsu and the awareness that it brings me is definitely helped keep me out of maybe dangerous situations or situations where could potentially lead to something else. So just having that awareness, and also having the confidence when I am maybe in a situation where it's sketchy or a little bit not so comfortable, I feel the confidence that I can defend myself, or, you know, get myself or my loved ones out of a dangerous situation.
And I feel like that's such a key part of it too, because ultimately it's just, can I think straight in this moment when something is elevating and ramping up? Can I have the confidence that, like, okay, I know if it comes to blows, I know what to do.
Exactly.
So all I really want to do is try to diffuse so that we don't have to go there.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that jiu-jitsu gives you. Like you say, you know, have you ever had to use your jiu-jitsu in real life situations? And physically, you know, that's one situation. But I think more often we're going to use our jiu-jitsu on an everyday basis, learning how to deal with the emotions, being able to keep our patience, being able to keep our temper, you know. I think if, you know, you have to deal with somebody aggressively trying to choke you, trying to control you on the mat all the time, you know, you can get your adrenaline up and all that stuff, and that can help you translate, you know, out there in the real world. You get into a situation maybe at work or, you know, with somebody else in public. you're able to keep your wits about you, you know, not lose your temper and kind of relax and, like you say, try to maybe defuse the situation as much as possible without ever having to get physical, you know, in the first place.
Kind of seems like if I had to get in a fight with someone, you almost do and don't want to get in a fight with someone who knows jiu-jitsu. Because you don't, because it's going to be over real quick. And you're going to make a fool of yourself for sure. But you do because that you're not going to probably have a bruise on you. Ultimately,
Hopefully they'll do it nicely.
you're going to take a nap if it even comes to that. You may take a nap. If you can't control yourself at some point, you might break a wrist. That's about it.
Yeah. And, you know, I for the most part, when I tell people, it's funny because usually the people that are very quick to get violent, very quick to try to jump into a fight, are usually the people that maybe don't necessarily know how to fight so well. So a lot of times you see that person that's, hey, you know, chill out, you know, trying to keep the situation calm. They know what might result in that. They know what can happen from a physical altercation. They know somebody could end up getting hurt, you know, and it might be them, you know. So I'm very aware of that. I know how to handle myself. I know jiu-jitsu. I can fight fairly well. You know, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but that's the last thing I want to do is get into a fight. Not only do I not want to hurt somebody else, but there's nothing saying that something might happen. I don't want to get hurt, you know. You never know what can happen. So the fight's the last thing that I want to get into, you know.
So have you done any thinking for yourself about sort of why you were so drawn to doing this as a profession? Because you told me a bit about your schedule when I asked when I could come in, and you're here all the time. I imagine both of you are, which I get as a business owner. That's part of what it is. But it seems like you would have to have some propensity personally to want to do this all day long and really enjoy and take something away from that. So, I mean, was that something that growing up was kind of natural for you? Did you fight a lot as a kid? Were you picked on? Was it the opposite and you needed some way? Like, what was kind of...
You know, what I used when I got into jiu-jitsu is because of fighting. I wanted to be a better fighter, and that's what my whole focus was when I first started training. As I started really training and really learning more about jiu-jitsu, learning more about the art aspect of it, the lifestyle, I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and I just started thinking less about fighting and more about, you know, just developing myself, the art, myself in the art. And jiu-jitsu really helped me a lot in my life, my personal life. It helped me get away from bad habits, bad things that I was doing at one point in my life. And so when I started really concentrating on my training, and really kind of pulled me away from that. I used to work full-time in other jobs. Once I started really, you know, getting into my training and started developing myself, I started seeing the benefits that it was giving to me, and I wanted to kind of share that with other people. So I really just decided, you know, at that point that I wanted to open up an academy. Once I was able to put in enough time into the academy where I was able to step away from my full-time job and put all my time in here, then we just made the decision to go ahead and open full-time and make that our career. We've been open for, over 12 years now. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's been going all right.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things I think that grows because your students love it so much and they bring more people with them. And the word spreads overall about sort of Gracie, because you guys are it's kind of like you're like a part of that organization, aren't you? Doesn't it all kind of...
The Gracie Barra is an association, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So you're getting into fighting, and jiu-jitsu is like kind of that open space for you where you can find something productive to be doing and turns into a passion. I think that's fantastic. I think it's inspiring for a lot of people who are looking for something to do. And I have to imagine, particularly for the kids who are coming here, I can't imagine what a difference that would have made for me as a kid. To feel confident about my own body, to walk around. I'm big now, but I was once quite small, and I was a grade ahead of where I was supposed to be, and so I was much smaller than everyone else around me. So the idea that I would know how to handle myself there,
Right.
you know, I think that would have made a big difference in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
what you do for these kids has to be, I mean, do you hear stories about them?
Oh yeah.
I imagine.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. A lot of times parents will bring their kids in here because, well, I have one little girl. She wasn't talking to anybody at school, not her peers, not her teachers, not a single word, and they didn't know what to do. And so they brought her to me. We did start in a private setting, so private lessons was usually ideal for people like extreme like that. And she has worked through so much, come out of her shell so much. She's live rolling. She's working out of bad situations in jiu-jitsu, you know, when you're stuck on the bottom and someone's smashing you. And she's able to just really, she doesn't panic anymore. She's able to do her jiu-jitsu very effectively, but also just, she has friends here. She's talking to her peers, her teachers now, her grades are up, everything. Everything has changed 100% because of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think that's a common philosophy is like if your kid's having those types of issues, let's get them in a sport, right? Let's get them
Right.
socializing. But
Yeah.
there's something special about jiu-jitsu that not only opens up doors for that socializing where they can have that group of friends that are here, but also it's not really an option. You need a partner and you need to communicate with that partner.
Yeah.
So you're going to be on the mat and you're going to have to
you're
talk to
gonna
them
have
and
to
figure
talk
out.
to somebody.
But then you're also kind of gaining that confidence in yourself, and I love the parallel that you're on the bottom and someone's crushing down on you, and like,
Yeah.
gosh, how often do we feel like that?
Yeah, in life.
You know?
Yeah.
And you're just
wanna
like,
give up.
just gotta breathe,
Yep.
you know, figure out how we can turn this around,
Exactly.
Exactly.
no matter how long it takes. So,
Yeah.
love it. The two of you are also in great shape. And you must have a lot of energy to keep this up all the time. So I'm a big kind of health guy. So I'm wondering, how do you bring your energy every day here?
Coffee.
A lot of coffee.
No, you know, I think just the passion for one is like a driving force. The passion to come in and teach and train and just be on the mats with our team and with our students. I think even when you're a little bit worn out, a little bit tired, you know, that's just going to push you to keep going, you know, because we have that passion to be here. But also, I think just, you know, you got to take care of yourself. I mean, you got to get sleep. You got to rest when you can. You got to eat well, you know, water. You got to drink water. And, you know, I think just we get enough exercise in here. You know, we get a lot of exercise in here. So when I'm not training, I'm just concentrating on letting the body recuperate, you know, eating well as much as possible, rehydrating, get that rest, and get up the next morning and be ready to go again. Yeah.
Find that balance and make it work.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
And coffee. I do drink probably too much coffee, but yeah.
It can help, but at some point it's
keeps me going.
like running an engine on pure nitrous. And
Yeah.
it's not going to last
It's not going to do
forever.
anything more. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. Okay. So I was able to come in and just to give some insight to someone who's never tried this before, because I think I can be kind of a good layman. I had no idea what to expect. I was quite nervous. I don't get nervous about a lot of things, honestly. I really don't. And Andrea, my wife, was I think she was just having a good time watching me kind of mentally freak out as I was kind of on my way here. Because, you know, you can watch a lot of videos about this. You can even see classes kind of being done, and it's totally different. I think one thing that even surprised me, and this may or may not be true depending on people's personal lives, is I'm not familiar with the idea of having a body right on top of me mostly. There's only one person who's ever on top of me, and it's a totally different context.
Yeah.
So getting comfortable with the idea of being kind of that close. I also happen to be the lankiest person ever, and so that kind of makes this a bit difficult. I know that can be an advantage sometimes and disadvantage in other times. But I came in and I did a beginner class with the gi and the whole, you know, the full thing, and really learned some of those techniques. And then you guys let me hang around, which I appreciated, for kind of a more combat class, a no gi class where we were throwing a couple jabs and we were doing some rolling with that. And obviously there's guys in there that really know what they're doing, which is, I appreciated that you grabbed me out of there and partnered up with me, because I was like, I'm just going to waste somebody's night. You know, they're going to be explaining things to me the whole time. But by the end of that, you know, because we work a couple individual techniques, and by the very end, you know, you were showing me some things where it was like either you're starting on the bottom or starting on the top, and which is, what are those called? I'm forgetting. It's the guard or mount.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea is always to kind of get into mount position, basically.
Yeah, you're trying to get to the most dominant position.
Yeah, and you showed me 3 or 4 pathways to get there. The only thing I had known coming here was sort of like, almost like, don't let someone move you around. So like, if you move, I move with you, and that's about the only thing I knew. But from there, you were able to show me kind of like, get your leg in here, here's how you can throw me off. And I felt like, oh man, I get this by the end. And ultimately, if there was someone on top of me who was not you, who knows what you're doing, and it's just a random dude trying to throw punches at me, I think I could remember how to stick my leg in there and toss him off and throw him in that chokehold.
Yeah, nice.
It's so 2 hours, and I feel like, man, I think I could handle myself.
That's good.
Particularly against someone who has no idea what I'm doing.
That's
But
good.
that's a part of it
That's
too,
perfect.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like you get in a fight with someone, and all of a sudden they've grabbed you, and you're on the ground, and they seem to know what they're doing. I think the mental aspect of that just wipes out you. They're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So it's almost
That's
like
why
a
we
fight's
try to avoid the fight in the first place as
Absolutely.
much as possible. you
Right,
know?
right.
Yeah.
But even that's sort of like a form of de-escalating, because sometimes when your opponent knows they've already lost, they're like, all right, man, I
All
guess I'm
right,
done."
I give up.
Sometimes all it takes is a good outside trip and mount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's true. Once you show somebody like, hey, you know, I can hurt you if I wanted to, you know, you should maybe chill out, then maybe that's all it's going to take anyway,
Right.
you know?
Well, and
Yeah.
you're going to have the experience of like, you can keep going. You could go, I don't know the longest rolling you've ever done, but I imagine it's more than a few minutes, which is the average street fight has
Right.
got to be what, like
Yeah.
30 seconds.
You figure most, you know, average Joes walking around out there that don't train on an everyday basis, you know, even a lot of guys don't work out or anything like that. They're not gonna last more than 1-2 minutes most.
That
They're gonna
adrenaline's
gas
gonna
out.
wear
Yeah,
out and
they're
they're
gonna
done.
adrenaline dump and be done. A lot of times I tell people in self-defense situation, sometimes your best weapon is your feet. Just keep you moving, run away until they get tired, and then they don't want to hurt you no more. You know, it's like they can't breathe anymore. Then okay, cool, I'm gonna go home.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
So,
So staying in that top
Yep.
physical shape is also super
Yeah,
important. It's a good way to
exactly.
do
And I
it.
just want to add, you can be in really great shape. We've had runners, bicyclists, weightlifters, CrossFit trainers, and they come in here and they do jujitsu. Of course,
different.
being in a good physical shape will
gonna
help
help.
you, but it's very different than fighting.
That's what we were just talking. You know, it's a different exercise. It's a different type of workout.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I work out most days, and I like to think I go pretty hard. But man, I'm wiped. I'm totally gassed. Tomorrow I'm gonna lay around and feel sore all day.
All
Yep.
over.
It's just very different. So getting to the gym and getting into it and keeping that going and
Yeah.
building that muscle memory is just the
Yeah.
best way to absolutely do this. So I love that. That's sort of the pitch for hopefully, you know, what you guys are doing here, and then also just the art as a whole. But I know that's not your only interest too. And because I found you on Instagram, and you've also got a passion for Jeeps. It
Yes.
seems taking Jeeps up places that would scare me.
I like driving over rocks. You know?
Right. So you've got a real kind of like
Big rocks.
lifted up Jeep. And you
Yeah.
just, I mean, this is a place to do it, right?
Yeah,
In
there's some
Mexico.
really good four-wheeling area out here. A lot of nice land to go out. We have a lot of open land, you know, so it's really good. There's a event over here that we have every year. It's over by Caballo, you know, the Chili Challenge. It's a huge event. People come from all over the country, and it's a big off-roading festival. It's 4 days long, so yeah, it's a major off-roading area over here.
So, where did you get started with that? Because I don't think that just happens for everybody.
Yeah, I was.
You got in an accident, and you were like, "That was
No.
fun." Maybe.
No, I grew up when I was a kid. I grew up in the desert, you know. So we were always out there on riding our bikes, you know, running around out there.
Because like Alamogordo, that's near like White Sands and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I used to always like to ride my dirt bike. We used to be into dirt bikes, four-wheelers, all that stuff. So I've always liked being, you know, out there off-roading. When I was old enough to actually buy my first Jeep, you know, I always wanted a Jeep And so I finally was able to get one. And man, it just was no turning back from then. You know, it just
Opened up a whole
yeah,
new
it's
world
like
for him.
And I see you kind of giggling here. Are you not a part of this passion, but you support him in it? But.
I have really learned to appreciate the amazing places our Jeep can take us.
That's very true.
And the beautiful scenery, and just to get out there in the middle of nowhere is awesome.
And it's not just the two of you. You've got a couple kids in the mix.
Just a
yeah,
couple.
yeah. We have 6 kids.
You have 6 kids. Okay.
Yeah, from age 21 all the way down to 3, right? Ezekiel's
That's quite a
3.
span.
Yeah.
And you have free babysitters. That's excellent too.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's a big family. Now, do they all do jiu-jitsu
Yes.
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 too? Okay. Because I think the one
oldest.
thing I had seen, because I try to scroll back and get an idea of who I'm talking to, was you guys went on a cool camping trip. And I thought about that, and I was like, man, yeah, you get in the Jeep, you can go those places no one else can go to
Yeah.
unless you got a Jeep, and just set up and camp right there.
Oh yeah. Yep. It's awesome. What do they say? Your kid's not going to remember the gas mileage. You know, it's going to remember the places you took them. So we go to some pretty cool places.
Absolutely. And in both endeavors, I'm totally with you. Like, I rode my motorcycle here. I love riding my motorcycle, but I keep on real flat ground generally. I love flat. You know what I mean? The paved stuff is always good. I don't try to go up any wild rocks or anything. Maybe one day, you know, I know they can.
Yeah.
Mine can't. But, and then obviously the camping again. So you probably checked out and saw that living on the road full time, we live in a beautiful RV. And
awesome.
that also I like to keep real flat when I can because it's pretty big. So, yeah, we go flat when we can.
That's
we
cool.
work very hard to keep flat.
We went to Colorado. We've been to Colorado, and man, some of the highway up there that you drive on, the $1 Million Highway, is just as crazy as some of the trails that you drive on. It's just paved, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a really scary road to drive on.
Yeah. So we lived in Denver for 2 years, my wife and I, and got to do a lot of exploring up in the mountains.
Nice.
And particularly, like, my favorite road, if anybody loves Colorado, was Peak to Peak Highway, which runs all the way from just west of Denver way up north to basically Rocky Mountain National Park.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And is just a gorgeous ride for motorcyclists. But what's been very cool about the motorcycle is when we take it on the road, I get to ride everywhere I go. So, you know, we've been to the Black Hills. I've got to ride the Black Hills. I've got to ride the desert in Arizona and New Mexico. And so there's always a place to kind of go. And I think that's one of the benefits for sure.
That's
but
awesome.
I love that you guys get out and do a lot of stuff. It sounds like you have a really solid handle on just how to live that good life and kind of what happiness is in your way.
Yeah. Try to do a few things before we're not around to do them anymore, you know. So.
Have some
Exactly.
adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big driving force behind this whole podcast, is the idea that
That's awesome.
you will find excellent people everywhere that you go, and they have great outlooks on life, and the world is not as bleak as we all pretend on social media. That
Right.
It's some really
Yeah.
good people doing good things. Okay, I feel like we've given a really solid sales pitch for jiu-jitsu. I can't, if someone's listening and still doesn't want to sign up and come try this, at least as a guy, because that's the part I can speak to. As a dude who wants to feel confident walking around in the world, like I know what I'm doing, that those 2 hours were already huge.
Nice.
And I definitely want to keep going. I'm wondering if, Angela, you can speak to the female perspective, because I can't offer it, in sort of what that means. Because I wanted, I tried to get Andrea to come tonight, but I didn't know if that would even be okay with you guys. So.
Oh yeah, she should have came track class too. Yeah,
yes,
for
I wish
sure.
I would have
But
known.
maybe because we're only like 2 minutes away, I'll send her maybe one of these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we tried to make it really comfortable for the women,
Welcoming, yeah.
welcoming. We have a women's only class. So our that's always where I suggest women to start. Some, they don't mind going into the regular general adult population class, but the women's only class is a really good class to come to, for that reason, that you are body to body. There is someone on top of you, and so to eliminate anything out, any awkward feeling
Help
at
you get
the
past
beginning.
that discomfort
Yes.
right away. Yeah.
But for women, it might seem like, well, maybe how am I gonna really defend myself, but jiu-jitsu does give you exactly what you need in a terrible situation. So here I am stuck on my back, and here is this person who I don't want on top of me, and they're trying to get on top of me. And what am I going to do? What tools do I have? I tell the kids, it's like, you got a toolbox, but if you don't have anything in there, you're not going to be able to fix the situation. So our jiu-jitsu techniques are like our tools. We got our hammer and our screwdriver, and we build upon these things, and we get better tools as we train longer. But as a woman, to be stuck in a situation where you're in that bad position with no tools is very scary.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, I'm even thinking about, okay, so someone coming in for class the first time, I'm lucky enough to feel that a dude who's 200 pounds on top of me, that's awkward, and that's a new feeling for me, and that's interesting. And when I'm in a real fight, I'll be more comfortable with that idea. But I luckily in my life have never been sexually assaulted, and I don't find it likely statistically because I'm pretty giant. But you have a female coming into class for the first time who may have trauma like that in the past. To have someone jump on top of them, that's pretty intense.
Yes.
That's got to be an experience that
Yeah.
has to be gotten over, kind of a hurdle in that way.
That's why a lot of times it'd be best for her to maybe start in the women's only class, because she doesn't have to deal with all of a sudden this strange guy, trying to jump on top of her or something there. I think one of the hardest things to do is to come in, make yourself get in on the mat and actually get out there and try it, Once you get out there, it is a little bit hard to get comfortable and start actually just, trying to learn the technique. But you've the environment, the partner that you're partnered up with, the environment that you're in is gonna help a lot as far as making you comfortable. That's why it makes a huge difference the place that you go to also to try your first classes. Throughout the years of my own training, I've been to places where they say you're like fresh meat. You walk in and it's like, oh, you're getting thrown to the wolves. You don't know who's out there. And who's going to be out there trying to hurt you or whatnot, And if
Like
you
some
go,
sort of strange initiation.
yeah, exactly.
Or who needs it?
And if you go to a place and you're already have a little bit of skill and you're already a little bit good, then man, they're gonna try to take you out, you know. So here we always try to have that very welcoming environment, that very friendly attitude, and that's why we have the different programs. Where if you're a beginner, I'm not going to throw you in with the advanced student and just let them beat up on you. We're going to put you through the different programs.
There would really be no point in getting with someone who knows so much more than you. You're not going to learn a dang thing.
And how many people are going to want to stick around for very long after, maybe, gosh, this is something I really want to do. So, okay, I go my first time and I get beat up on, but gosh, I really want to do this. So I push myself to go back again, and then I just get beat up again. It's like you're only going to take so much of that before hey, this isn't fun. I don't want to do this, And I tell people, as long as you're at least having a little fun in what you're doing, it's going to be a lot easier to do it for a long time,
And like you said, it really depends on the jiu-jitsu school you go to. This has always been our philosophy, is to make everybody feel comfortable and feel welcome. And that's part of what Gracie Barra is too. It's jiu-jitsu for everyone. So that includes the little people, the big people, the women, the kids,
the older, the younger, the disabled, anybody.
Everyone should, and we've been told that everyone feels like they can find a place here. So we've done good in that we've created an environment that's suitable for everybody.
I have people here that just train recreationally, they train for exercise. I have people that come that do competitions. They go to different competitions. I have professional MMA fighters. So we have, the spectrum is big, all different types of people that train.
Also law enforcement.
Yeah,
we have
law
a lot
enforcement.
of law enforcement who come and do have to apply the very things we're teaching them.
In a real life, setting, real life situation.
Day to day.
Yeah, super
And they've
important
come
right now,
back.
especially the idea of not hurting the person that you're trying to
Exactly, yeah.
detain. Right? We don't need lethal force when you know what you're do we need to detain somebody?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have one gentleman who's a police officer. He's only been training for a few months, only a couple stripes, and he was able to apply the technique that we learned so well that he was shocked himself.
surprised
All
himself.
his partners or whoever saw him apply this takedown and, Kimura hold is what it was. They were, awed by him.
He had to
And
do
it
it
was
on a
just-
guy who was getting violent at one of the bars here in town.
Casino or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, and again, what a lucky person who comes across a police officer that knows jiu-jitsu,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
because no one's gonna put their knee on your throat.
Yeah,
It's really not gonna
you're
work like
gonna
that.
get beat with the
not gonna
stick or
get beat.
something. Yeah.
Maced in the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Really, I'm not one to declare what policies should be, but man, it would be a benefit if a lot more police officers were
Oh, yeah.
made aware of this.
Yeah.
It's like weirdly one of the most violent and also gentle martial arts ever, because it's a puzzle. It's not about beating somebody up. It's just a puzzle.
Exactly. Finding the leverage, finding
Phenomenal.
the timing.
That's
finding
why I
the
say you
angles.
could almost kind of decide how much you want to hurt them. If I don't want to hurt you, I can control you and I can not hurt you. If I need to hurt you, or for some reason I wanted to hurt you, that's always available too. So really, I think jiu-jitsu is something that you learn, but it also really depends on the person. What kind of morals you have, and I'm always very careful about the people that I teach jiu-jitsu to. If I see that you're coming in here and all you want to do is learn how to hurt people, then I'm probably gonna suggest you go somewhere else, and maybe go find a different school, because you probably won't fit in here anyway.
How do you assess like that psychological component of that too? Because in that class it's mostly the motion, it's mostly we're moving. So how do you guys get to know people kind of outside of that?
Once you see somebody, the way they act on the mat for at least a couple of classes, just their attitude in general, towards people, and then once they get on the mat, if they're out there, if they're a good training partner, they can work with the other person, and they're not just trying to hurt them or overexert themselves on the technique. When I'm letting you get the technique, you don't have to forcefully do it and just try to hurt me. If I can spend just a couple of classes and watch somebody and see if they're if they have good intentions or not. If they're there to learn, it's pretty obvious. If they're there just to try to hurt somebody, then you could tell that they kind of don't have the right attitude in their training with their partner usually.
Well, I think that's also a problem that almost works itself out as you continue.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big fan of the theory that sort of the bad things we do really just emanate from fears we have about ourselves in the world.
Right.
Yeah. And I can imagine that as you continue on this program, your fears start to go away, sort of about yourself and how you fit in and what to do and sort of your way of handling yourself. So
Right.
I feel like that's almost something that would disintegrate as someone
Yeah,
keeps
some
going if
people
they
come
got the
in and
ability to do that.
maybe they're not necessarily the best person after a while. They kind of start losing that anger that inside of them. They start relaxing a little bit, not being such an aggressive person. Then it's you could see the jiu-jitsu kind of working inside of them, relaxing them a little bit. Yeah.
Being that outlet for them.
Yeah.
And have you both competed then in what would you call that? Is it like a league or what is it that we?
There's different.
I don't know any of the terminology. I'm actually kind of embarrassed that I got the R's wrong and
Oh,
said
no.
Barra instead of
No,
Baja.
it's-
That's okay.
But I'll learn. I'll
Everybody-
learn right
everybody
now.
does
You know
that.
what? And I knew that too because I've seen videos with Henner Gracie, who I'm like a big fan of because I think he's obviously the legacy, and so he's really good at communicating what the idea of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is, and so I knew the R's were H's, and I still
Yeah, no, everybody does that. It's everybody thinks it's somebody's last name, Barra, because like there's a lot of people around here, Hispanic last
Yeah,
names.
absolutely.
That's a Hispanic last name, but it's actually Baja de Tijuca is a place, and so that's why it's called Gracie Barra, because it was started in Baja de Tijuca, Brazil.
Okay.
And so they used to call them the Gracies of Baja, and that's
There you
where
go.
the name came from. yeah.
Okay. So, and then now I'm on a completely different tangent because I've always been curious about why Brazil speaks Portuguese, and is that the only country in South America that's primarily Portuguese?
You know, I don't know. As far as I
feel
know,
like I
I
saw
think
something
it
like
is.
that
Yeah.
even today talking about that.
And I think it all has to do with just the like the settlement, you know, with I think some of the Portuguese sailors came over, and I think they started settling in that area, and I think maybe that's
You got
where
the
they got the language
Portuguese, and then
from.
you've got the conquistadors sort of on the other side of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I really don't know why they speak Portuguese in Brazil, but yeah, that's what they speak.
Well, now anybody who wants to try this out is going to walk in and not make the mistake I did, and they can feel much better about themselves when they walk in. So that's helpful. My actual question, the competing. So how long have you been at that, and is that something that you still both actively do? And kind of what's the reason behind that? Like, what do you find that you gain from doing those competitions? Obviously, I understand there's a professional component because you guys both have a reason to put your name on the map here with this academy. But so
Right.
what are the other reasons there?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons that I first started competing was just for my own personal, goals. I wanted to be able to prove to myself that what I was learning was effective, that, I was actually learning something, and that I could go and apply it against somebody who didn't want me to, And so that's why I first started competing. But then once we started opening the school, it was like that I had to go prove myself as a teacher, as a competitor, in order to make a name for the school and to want people to, come in and start training and stuff like that. Once I was able to establish the school and establish myself, I think a lot of it is just, again, going back to my personal satisfaction. I like the competition. I like to be able to go out there and test myself against somebody else and make sure that what I'm doing is effective, it works. So I competed a lot coming up through the ranks, through my belts. Right now I kind of joke and I tell people I'm like semi-retired from competition. So I like to concentrate on my students that like to compete and try to get them a little bit more ready and develop them and concentrate less on myself. Yeah.
The last competition you did was about a year ago?
Yeah, the last I was out of competition for about 3 years, and then I got a call and they asked me to do a professional jiu-jitsu event. It's called Fight to Win. It's a really big event. You could find it online and all that stuff. But they asked me to go compete there, and it's a submission only tournament, so you could only win by submission. So I went over there, and it was in
February of last
February.
year.
Yeah, so it's been about a year, and I won there. I won that one, so that's good. And I haven't competed since then, so I'm not really looking to compete anytime
The fight
soon.
to win, just to say, the fight to win is more like a show. It's a one match. You go on a stage. There's lights. There's music. It's a big shindig, and it's really awesome what they do for the sport.
It's almost
And
like an
then there's-
MMA event,
Yeah.
but with jiu-jitsu, without
Grappling.
with grappling. Yeah, it's
They have
that
some
that size, that magnitude of a show. Yeah.
And then there's tournaments
Right.
where you go and you're in a bracket with people, and you have to fight as many people as you can to get
Multiple.
to the first place.
So I guess I'm curious, what does it come down to when you've got? I think everybody knows that black is the highest belt, so tell me I'm right there first of all. But
Well,
okay, so you've got 2 black belts with like huge levels of experience up against each other. I don't even understand the mechanics of who would win or why, because I feel like it's not about sort of being evenly matched. It's just like we know all the same techniques, we understand exactly how to move our bodies. So like, what exactly does it come down to? Is it then sort of about who can be stronger or faster or think quicker?
A lot of it is like I always say, it's you're playing human chess. It's a chess game. Even though you know the moves, you already know the techniques that the other person does. It's just like in a game of chess. I'm trying to set you up, with my moves. I'm trying to manipulate you into moving a certain way. That way I can capitalize on your movements. So we may know the same moves, we may know the same techniques, but depending on how I play, you know, how my setups are, my combinations, I'll be able to catch you, you know, in certain things. Sometimes you can get a little bit tricky on your moves, and they may not see them coming, you know, depending on your setup. So even though I know an armbar just like you do, you may be able to set it up a little bit, you know, in a sneaky way that you might catch me without me recognizing it in time. So
It must have something to do too with just sort of the endurance of, can you keep it up, and who
the
can keep it up
conditioning,
longer,
especially in tournaments, cardio conditioning play a huge thing. You know, if you can't breathe, you can't fight. So the longer you can last, the better chance you have. Yeah.
What's kind of the attitude walking into when you're about to start rolling with somebody? Is it always sort of that really positive? Like, is it almost like the person who's keeping it lighter has an advantage, or does it get real serious?
I think it depends on your style. You know, some people have a little bit more of an aggressive style. Some people have a little bit more of a relaxed style. But I think as long as you can keep yourself calm as far as your breathing, be able to keep your head clear and think about what you're doing. Usually you'll be able to, you know, get the upper hand of the situation. But I think the more aggressive you are about something, like you try to use too much strength, you try to go too fast, too hard, a lot of times you wear yourself out a little bit. So the more relaxed you are, in my opinion, I think the better it's going to be.
It's really more of a head game.
More of a
It's
flowing
thinking.
type motion, you know. When I roll, just training, everyday training, I play. Like I always tell people, to me, I'm just out there playing. I'm like, you know, like a kid, and I'm out there wrestling around or whatever. When it comes down to competition, that's a different mentality for me. You know, everyday training is fun. When you go to competition, I'm going there to finish that guy. I'm going there to win, you know, that's what I'm doing. So I approach it a little bit different. I'm a lot more aggressive in competition than I am in just everyday training.
I think that makes a lot of sense too.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to be.
Yeah.
You got to remember why you're there in the
Yeah.
first place.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's no point.
Yep.
And I can imagine that day to day, no one's coming close to your skill level that you're going to be rolling with on an average basis. So it's kind of more of a game.
The thing is though, like I just graduated a few black belts on you know, this past weekend. So right now, and it's something that I'm proud of. But I've actually developed some of my students to the point where I have to watch out because they'll get me. You know, they're that good, and so it's on any given day, if I'm training with one of my senior students, I have to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do right. I'm taking care of myself, and it's not so much like I'm way better than them, because you know they're getting to that same level, you know, where they're gonna be able to catch me if I don't watch out. So.
The pride someone would have with getting a submission from Professor Jacob. I can imagine. They'd be walking in the class for a few days.
There's only a couple that can say they.
They don't get me often, but yeah.
Yeah, and
Once
not
in a
again
while,
either. Yeah. But I guess that's sort of the main goal of any teacher, though, is you kind of want to see if you can get your student to be better than you
better
were.
than me, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To go off track, because obviously I'm super into this. This has been such a fun day. But I also love Las Cruces. Fantastic place, and I really haven't had enough time to even explore. What is it for the two of you that sort of keeps you here and keeps you excited about being in this community?
You know,
I was born and raised here.
Okay.
So even though Jacob says this is his hometown, this is my
It's
hometown.
actually yours.
And I just love so many things, but the weather is just amazing. The people, the openness, but yet you can still be to things right away.
It reminds me of some of my favorite cities ever, in that there's a busyness that you want from a city, and there's plenty of people and plenty of things to do. But I also feel like I have space in a way that, as a kid who grew up in Central Illinois, I miss that sometimes. And you go to certain cities and you're like, man, I can't breathe around here.
Yeah.
You guys have mountains right nearby, cool national. I think it's now a national park. White Sands just down the road, and obviously you're right in this belt of so many things to do in the Southwest.
That's one of the biggest things I like about the area is it's big enough as far as the city. You know, we have enough things here, but it's not too big. You know, because I like that openness, that open space. Even just going down to El Paso or up to Albuquerque, that's too much city for me. I could not live in one of those places.
Yeah, El Paso was pretty busy. I spent a week there, and it was a lot to wrap my mind around.
I need to be surrounded by a little bit more nature, not just buildings, you know.
Yeah.
And streets. So I really like the openness of it here.
Lots of mountains to explore.
Lots of area, lots of
Take
land
that
to go
Jeep out.
four-wheeling on.
Yeah.
Yep. But I like the people. I think, you know, honestly, the people here, and I know that's a cliche, but I think the people in Las Cruces are some of the friendliest people that you'll ever come across. I've, you know, traveled to other cities, and, you know, you could feel it. I'll go to the gas station and, you know, say hi to somebody as I'm walking in the store, and they look at you funny, like, why are you talking to me? I don't know you. Here, people say hi. You talk to people passing every day, you know, and that's something that I've really come to appreciate is just the people in the city, the friendliness. You see everybody's always like really willing to help each other and stuff, you know, when something happens. So I really like that. That's one of my favorite things about being here is the people.
I think that's a good point. I mean, we say you're a combination of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? But there's something about you are also the product of the city that you live in. And I get to say that now because I'm on completely outside, so I have no community, which is fantastic. And I see that in certain places where if the attitude is friendly, that's going to affect your day in a big way. And it's hard to put your finger on exactly when it happens, but you can feel it when it does. So obviously Las Cruces, beautiful town. If you are in Las Cruces, lucky enough to be in Las Cruces and listening to this episode, highly recommend that you come give this a shot. Just try it for an hour. You will find incredibly friendly people here to greet you who want you to give it a shot. This is also kind of how it works here, is the idea someone could come in and try, right? And it doesn't take a whole lot of knowledge, and you can, I mean, the guy I was partnered up with in my first beginner class, this was his second time, so he didn't mind that I was slow because he only knows a day more than I do, and that I think was huge, to feel like you can get into this. And honestly, I mean, if I lived here, you guys would see me every day. I'd love that. That would be fantastic.
That's awesome.
I'm sure I'll come by and visit when I'm in town. But what I really need, honestly, from Gracie Barra is to get a program going where I could go anywhere, wherever I'm stopped. That's what I need, something like that, because I don't even think I can have a membership like that.
You know, that's one of the good things about Gracie Barra Association is one of the goals about the Gracie Barra Association is to have at least one school in every major city around the world, and like we're almost there. We're doing it. So if you're a member in a school in one place, you can attend other schools. You could always go to other schools as a visitor. So,
I think you just made a sale.
So for people that travel, you know, you can actually drop into whatever city you're into that school and go visit them.
Right, and the other thing is, you know, you walk into a class and the instructor, the professor, is a professor everywhere, or is that just here?
The black belts are professors.
Professor. They have a whatever the techniques are that you're going to kind of learn that day and try to master. And so I feel like that you're not at a disadvantage. If you can understand the basics of how this works and you can watch the technique that you're practicing with your partner today, I really feel like I could keep up in any city. So. And
we follow a curriculum. So for each program that we have, the beginners, intermediate, and advanced, we all follow a 16-week curriculum. So wherever you go to any school, we're all following the same curriculum.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. So you already have an idea of what's going on, no matter where you're at, you know. And they're available online too, so you could actually get online and watch it and see what you're going to be doing that week.
I get that. At the same time, there's something about it where you need a partner.
Oh
you're
yeah,
not gonna feel it the same way.
I tell people you can watch YouTube techniques all day, but there's nothing like getting in here on the mat and actually trying something. And I can tell when you've been watching YouTube because you come out with some weird stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then I show you how to. Yeah, I didn't teach you that.
Right.
So let me show you how to really do it.
Yeah. Well, the only person who is always with me is Andrea, and she's not into it. So.
I remember that day.
That's how she started.
Well, I'll do my best. I'll do my best to to see if she would.
She
come
got
out
tired
to
of me yanking on her arm, so she had to learn something to do it back to me.
Okay.
See?
I said, let me try.
Yeah.
If you want to try it on me, okay, but let me try it on you too.
Yeah, fair enough.
There you go.
Kind of developed
20
from there.
some years ago, and yeah.
Yeah, now I'm a black belt.
Fantastic.
Who would imagine?
That is so excellent. But obviously that situation mostly applies to me, which is not a lot of people out there who are doing what I do. More than you think, but who are listening to this podcast, we're getting a real narrow part of the population now. So obviously for anyone in Las Cruces, come down and do this.
Sure.
You will not regret the hour of your time, and there's a good chance you're just going to want to keep doing it because it's totally addictive.
It is.
And if not, you really have not lost an hour because it's a good time. And obviously for people who are out there, these guys have schools everywhere. So look them up.
Over 800.
Over 800 now.
Gracie Barra schools.
That's fantastic. And there are other forms too, and just get into it.
There's lots of good jiu-jitsu schools out there, and we're not the only ones that believe in the philosophy jiu-jitsu for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, just find someone you can agree with
Right.
and can get along with. So I encourage everybody to try this who has not. My dad is an avid listener to this podcast, so this message is specifically for him to get out
Nice.
there and try this, because
Yes.
I think he would like it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We have all ages that,
Oh,
that train with us. We have people over 60. We have a blind man who's over 60. A lady who's over 60. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine being blind is that much of a disadvantage here, because you feel everything that you're doing.
That's one of the good things about the contact,
Yeah,
you
if
can
not
still
throwing punches.
practice.
Yeah. Okay, so where can people find you then? Let's make sure we get all of the social media plugs. So I found you on Instagram.
On Instagram.
It's Jeeping Professor. And where can we find the school and everything like that?
On Facebook, Gracie Barra Las Cruces, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And
We're on
also on
Instagram too,
Instagram, GBLC BJJ.
Perfect.
And if you go on the graciebaja.com and look under Las Cruces, you'll find our school.
Or
if you
whatever
go,
area you're in,
Yeah.
you can find
Exactly.
the Gracie Barra school
exactly.
there.
Any city.
Okay, so check them out online, and if you want to follow along, we took some excellent pictures earlier. Find me at T Hickson Life as usual, and you will see me in some type of chokehold that you maneuvered. What is that called? So that I
was
can
a
write
bow
it
and
right?
arrow.
Bow and arrow
yeah.
chokehold.
Because it's like bending a bow to string it.
Yeah, it hurts.
So, yeah, it's a nasty one.
It is. It's pretty nasty. But the point was not to actually knock me out, obviously, and it's sort of my responsibility to tap out if I feel like I might. So, perfect. Thank you guys both again for having me. It has been a super fun evening. I can't think of a better way to spend an hour or two.
Awesome.
So everybody needs to give this a shot, and I'm gonna work on Andrea. But I don't know. I can't make her like the things I like. You know what I mean? That's not fair.
No, and
Yeah.
maybe there'll come a time.
Absolutely. There's a place for everybody. All right. So thank you again for listening. This has been another excellent episode of Strangers Worth Meeting from Las Cruces, New Mexico. And we'll see you on the next episode.